Welcome to Process Guide. In today's lesson, we will be designing the YouTube page and using the Bootstrap grid system. We want to use the Bootstrap grid system to design the YouTube homepage to give us the idea of how flexible the grid can be. So let's jump into action by starting. In the last video, which you can find the link in the description below, we introduced the grid system. So let's start by reviewing what the YouTube requirement is in terms of what are the things we need to put into consideration when designing something like this. Number one is the fact that it uses the full screen. That gives us the idea that we're going to be dealing with fluid container. We talked about fluid container in our previous video. So we can then put here in the entry point of our application what we call container fluid. So we're pretty settled with that. That means all our content is going to be wrapped inside this little section. The next thing we'll talk about is the content, because we're going to be ignoring the logo area and the menu section. So those are just giveaways. So those are things you can work with yourself. We're going to be focusing on the content area. That's going to be where our focus is going to be on. That way we easily finish what we want to do in the container. And while I'm working on this, I'll be showing you guys helper class that Bootstrap has. They make your work faster and avoid you coding little padding and margin, color, border, all these things. We'll be using them, and I'll be exploring the utility class section. So as we design this template, because you will notice some little things like border on the left, like where we have this border radius. You will see how you can easily do that without writing CSS code. You will just write class, and then it will give you all these effects that you can see on all of these images. The next thing we want to focus on is to divide the section. As I've said, we're not designing the menu system, so you can design the menu system as an assignment. That would be an assignment for you guys. You can design this YouTube page and also include the menu system. That way it gives you something to do. So we want to focus on the two sections. I will name this menu, which is showing on our top right corner of the screen, and the second one will then be our content. But of course we've not added it inside the row. So this is supposed to be our two columns, but we are missing our row. You remember the requirement of how to create a grid system is that you have your row, and inside your row you have your columns. So depending on the kind of column you're going to create, you can specify those in your class. But for starters, we had this like class, and then we have col. That's column, COL, shortcut for column. So we have this like this. This is what we'll be working with. So I need to make it visually appealing. So I'll be using some helper class, some things to help me so that we can have these menu things pop up, or the content inside of the column pop out. So I'm going to introduce another div inside the menu so that I can properly style the menu and properly style the content separately. What I've just done is just to introduce a div inside the column so that I can style each of the menus separately. And what I want to do now is to introduce some of the utility class that's available that allows you to do some things that you will literally go and style in your style sheet. Normally, if I want to add more features to this, like I want to have this part bordered because I want to be able to visualize my content, I will then have to go to the style section here and start adding, let's say, border, and start styling it. But as I've mentioned to you, Bootstrap already thought about all of these things, most of these things. So it allows you to specify border on a particular content. So meaning I can have border on my menu by just specifying border. So by doing that, you can see a border around the menu system. And I'll repeat the same thing for the content. And you can even specify how how much border you want to add to each of the elements. So all the documentation for this can be found on Bootstrap website. So you can just go to the utility tool, and then you see all features, all utilities that you can use under border and many more. But we'll be introducing some here. I'll be using them, and then you see how I'm using them. So this declaration is just to bring in the border effects to it. You can be more specific to say you want the border to be 1 or 2, 3, 4. Then all the width will be increasing based on your specification of the border. You can also specify the color of the border by using the major colors of Bootstrap, but we'll get to color section later. So the reason why I'm introducing this one now is because I want to use it in my explanation to visualize what is going on. The next thing I also want to introduce is background, which we introduced the last time. So I did BG Light the last time. You saw me when we were talking about the login and the footer section, when we were trying to mimic the Facebook login page. So I will also introduce it here, and the idea is so that you can just have a visual clear effect of what's going on without me using styling, and with only me using what Bootstrap has to offer. The next thing I want to introduce as part of the utility class is the padding shortcut. Normally we have to go and install our padding, but here you can easily say P-3, for example. What that means is padding all the left, top, right, and bottom, and then you have 3. I will show you later how to pad each section of the elements that you're working with. This is a box model, so if you want to pad the left, if you want to pad the right, there's a way to do that. All the documentation, as I've mentioned, is available on Bootstrap. But once we get to a part where we need to do it, I will then introduce it as well. So the idea is to give us a very robust content so that we can visualize what we're doing. Now it's looking nice, and then we can move ahead. So this is a normal grid system. So the next thing I want to show you is how to introduce the gutter. What the gutter is to create a space between the column and the row. We saw this when we were talking about the grid in the previous classes when we were on CSS. So there's what we call the gutter, and how to introduce that is by using G dash the number of space that you want to add in between the column and the row. By default, you can see some spaces here, and by setting it to 0, it nullifies that space, meaning you don't want any gutter set. So it has a default gutter number, fixed number that it has. So you can specify how much or how wide you want that distance to be. So you can implement that with using the prefix G dash the number that you want to implement. And again, you have more options available in the Bootstrap documentation. You can also add gutter based on the breakpoints of the screen. So you can see automatically you have all these gutter that you want to set, that if it is based on this screen size, the gutter should be bigger or it should be smaller. So we might not use it relatively on this template, but let's set it to be 0. It depends on what we see. We might end up adjusting it as we go on using the template. Now here comes the tricky part. This is when we then need to start styling. Let me create, it's too close to the top of the screen. Okay, let me leave it here in the middle of the screen so that we can see what is going on. This is the tricky part of the screen where we need to start adjusting. Let's see the maximum width that we can play with. So this is the maximum. I want to stop at the maximum breakpoint, and that is here. This is the maximum. So what that means is that at each point, it will still maintain this screen view. It doesn't do anything separate on this screen. Although I notice it keep adding more columns while the screen increases, but we're not there yet. What we want to focus on is the major container. That is the major template. The menu and the content is what we are dealing with now. By the time we finish with the menu and the content, we can then focus on the content, here area where you have more videos displays based on the width of the screen. We will get to that section. So here is where we are actually focused on, this part. So I will stop my screen here and adjust here. It depends on how you want to design, but the major rule of the thumb is that you design for the larger screen first and then you work your way down to the small screen. So that's what I would advise, to design for. And you can target we can start with the largest screen in terms of our menu, specifying our menu system. So let's start with the column here. The column here, what this one does, as you know, is just to divide your screen evenly to give it what you want. If you want to target a particular section here, you even see using the column menu, it will be 2, just from me looking at it, 2 and 12. Remember, everything has to sum up to 12. That's 2 and 10. So this gives us a fairly, idea of what is going on. But this is not responsive. Using 2 and 12 is not responsive. You have to target the device that you are currently looking at. And we all know the devices. We have the SM, MD, LG, XL, XXL, like that. So we have those devices. So depending on the screen that you are on, we help you to target which breakpoint you want to stop at. So currently, what this one does is that it's not targeting anything. It's just specifying that at each level, just maintain those ratios that you have there, column 2 and column 10. It's not focused on any breakpoints. So how do you focus on a particular breakpoint? We are currently on the largest screen. So let's target the largest screen. So the largest screen is XSL. So notice what happens when we target the largest screen. And the point of me targeting the largest screen is that if I keep taking this one to the highest, if I keep taking it to the highest, you notice the consistency. So meaning that we need to target the highest screen first. So let's go ahead and stretch this to the highest screen and see what we have. So immediately you target the highest screen. I think this one is not correctly computed, so we have XSL. So immediately you have our large screen, the largest screen computed. You have this feature. You have this. So, but you will notice that the menu is not the same height or same width with this one. So let's change that to 1 and 11, and let's see what we have. So it looks like, 1 and 11 looks okay, but you can decide on which to pick. You can either pick 1 and 11 or 2 and 10. So that's for extremely large. So as you reduce the screen, once it notices that it has left that extremely large screen, it breaks. So let's maintain 2 and 10. And let's reduce the screen. So as you reduce the screen from XXL, it goes to XL. So immediately it gets to XL, you will see the difference. This is XL. So let's go and code for XL. So once you bring your screen here, you need to write the code for XL. And that is by combining it with the current class that you have here. You already have this one computed for XXL. How do you specify for XL? You write XL. Let's use 2 as well. Then this one is still 10. So you can see that this is fine. This is okay. So when you have similarities like this, you might not need to worry about the XSL anymore, because this is more like the same. If you stretch it beyond this, you won't have any issue. So we don't really necessarily need this because they are maintaining the same ratio. This ratio 2 to 10, this 2 and 10. So you don't need to worry about implementing this section. So if you remove this, nothing will be, we won't need to worry about anything. So if you stretch at any point, it will always give us that section. So we are good maintaining this one, except you want to use 1 and 11 for the extremely large screen, which is still fine. If you want to use 1 and 11, which is still fine, but I think we can stop at, I think 1 and 11 is okay. So I think this is fairly okay for this. Let's use this. This is fairly okay for this. 1 and 11 is okay for this screen size. So let's go back to what we're doing. I think this is fairly okay, and this also talks about the dynamism of the grid section that you have there. So let's move on to the next screen. So we've already solved the Excel. The next screen that we're going to meet is LG, which is the large screen. Let's try and reduce this one until we get to another breakpoint. So let's move and see our this is the next breakpoint, and this should be like LG. So let's see if we can push this also to see what will happen, because we've not specified for LG. Once we get to LG, it will also break. So this is at the point where it breaks. This is one section. So let's code for LG. For LG, I can deduce that our column should be 1, because you can see how small that column is here for YouTube. So it should be 1, while the other part should be 11. So you can see that on the screen that is relatively, in the same line. It's relatively making sense, having the same feature. So let's go ahead and keep, pushing and see where the next breakpoint lies. Let's see where the next breakpoint lies. So we keep pushing, and it looks it's still okay. It's being consistent. Now at this point, it takes the menu off, and I'm guessing this point is our MD. So let's see at what point that this stuff will stop working. So if you keep going, at what point? Okay, it's at this point. So this is, even though we're not quite there yet, you will know that you have 2 more screens. So let's make this one, let's be consistent on MD. Let's make our MD, let's still make our MD 1 and our MD 11. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So at this point is actually SM. So you can see that our MD worked all the way to this point before it broke. So let's now style our SM. Our SM is the smallest device. So at SM, we don't want anything to show at SM. So I will not even style SM. I don't want anything to show at SM. We'll get to that utility that will hide the menu for us when it's SM. But I want to make sure that at the point where my SM is on focus, what should happen to the content section should be 12. It should take the whole row. So I'll say my SM is 12, and automatically we see that happening there. So if you look at the menu system, this is done. We're done with the menu system. But what I want to happen to menu is that it should disappear at that point. So let's see if we can cover that section now. And that section is talking to hiding content on your screen based on the screen breakpoint. And we will put the explanation to that in another class. But just to make sure that we are having a smooth view, I will explain it a little bit. Okay, so to explain this to you, we will have 2 classes, or we have several classes to use. The first class is that's display and none. And what that does is to hide the elements that the class is attached to. And you have the block, and this is to show the content that you are currently looking at. And this content can also be hidden, and you can display it based on the breakpoints. Now, by default, I want to hide it, or rather, I want to show it by default. That's what this one says, dblock, meaning show for every breakpoint. That's what it's saying. However, what if I want to hide for a specific breakpoint? In this case, I want to hide for SM. So I do d-sm-none. What that means is that even though I'm displaying on all the breakpoints, however, when it comes to SM, don't display it, and that's what you've seen happen here. However, yeah, we have this way shown like this. So for some reason we're having a gap here, so I think this piece we're in is MD. So I can force MD to show by just doing MD and say it should show. So that is showing for us there. Okay, so I think we are pretty good. So you can see the MD section, so we can go along to see what is happening and test our results. So you can test your results and see what's happening. So let's check some other section. And the next thing for us to do is for us to be able to put in the content section here. Okay, so we have our content all set. How do we start putting our menu, or rather our grid system? Based on your view, you notice that the content also limited your number of videos that you can view. As you increase, it changes the content, requirements that you can view. So let's see how we can do that in Bootstrap. So let's work on the content section. And for the content section, we will do something different, but you know what we are trying to achieve. We are trying to have the grid display in such a way that as the width increases, what is displaying the content will reduce based on what is visible. So let's go ahead. We're introducing our row because we want to have another grid. So this time around, we have our column, and inside our column we will be able to specify the kind of effect we're looking at. Again, we'll bring in our helper class. Our helper class is going to be img-info subtool. So these are a way for us to dynamically bring colors into our template without you worrying about the design or the styling. Again, we are not writing any CSS. I just want to make use of all the features available on Bootstrap. So there are many kind of colors you can predefine, or that is predefined already, that you can use within your project. Once we get to that section, we will get to look at them in detail. But because I'm making use of it here, that's why I'm explaining it. Once we get to the section, we will explain it fully. Then I also have like a padding, which we've explained before now. So I think that's all we need to specify here. Then we can go ahead and have as many columns as we want. So I want to duplicate this page now, or rather this column section, so that we can have as many columns as we wish to have. So I could just do, I think this is cool. You see where the magic comes to play. So we'll have our column there, designing the content in such a way that our column is going to come out in this format. So we want to introduce something new, and that is the ability for you to decide how your row, what column should be your row from the row section. What that means is that I want to be able to define how many columns that we'll have in this row based on the view alone. Of course, we're still going to get to breakpoints, but I want to introduce a new class, and that class is called rol-cols. That's row columns. So row columns, and with this tag you can define that as I'm looking at these rows, I want to say it should be three that should be visible. From here, 3, you can say you want only 3 should be available at the point of view. So immediately you introduce this tag here, rol-cols 3, you only see three tags per view, and you can decide to change it to 2, and you will have that effect as well. So you can have 1, obviously, you can have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like that. So this gives you how you want to view your row, how many columns should be in a row, and the grid will automatically define how many rows you have based on all the columns you've computed in your display. So this comes in very handy when you are dealing with records that you don't know how many rows that they will have. So you're just putting in all your columns and you're letting the row column specification determine how many columns you have. In this case, on our demo, we are having 3 per these breakpoints, having 3 to show for these breakpoints. And as we increase the breakpoint, you will notice that it also increases in width and in size. The maximum we have is 6. So meaning at the point we have stretched it to the highest part, we can specify 6. So the good thing about the rol-cols class is that it also comes with breakpoints. It also comes with breakpoints, which makes it interesting. So how do you specify the highest breakpoint? We already know the highest breakpoint, which is XSL. And then in XSL, what do you want it to break to? You want to break it to 6, which means 6 videos should show per row. So if I increase this one all the way like this, we see 6 videos. This is what is available here. If you do the same thing here, you are expecting how many videos as well? You are expecting 6 videos. So this comes out the way we want it. The next thing you want to do is let's start shrinking and see how the video reduces, and we style that as well. So here we still have 6 videos. We still have, now at this point we have 5 here. Interesting. So at this point, I think this should be LG screen. So let's see. LG screen is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's go and target LG. So what you do, you repeat the same thing you have here, and let's try Excel. Let's see what Excel gives us. So let's see what Excel gives us. So this is 5. I want to see at the point where it changes. Let's see that they have the same width. As I've imagined, the breakpoint that YouTube is using is different from the breakpoints that Bootstrap is using. So we might just limit our view to Excel, that's extreme large. So on extreme large, we can just do 5, and we can start our view from here, which is 5 here. So this extreme large. So we can start our view from here. So I can cut out this one and not focus on extreme large. Then when I get to this view, I want to reduce to 3. So the next view that I want to see next is to reduce it to 3, which is rol-cols. That my next view is LG, which is 3 here. So I say 3. Then after this view, let's see what we have next. It goes to 2. Then you can say your next rol-cols.md should go to 2. So let's reduce it and see that works. I have a typo here. That should be CLS. Okay, so we have that showing. And finally, when it gets to mobile view, it should be showing 1. So that's SM. So we can say once you get to mobile view, and that is rol-cols SM1. So if you try to reduce it to that view, it starts showing 1. It starts showing 1 at the mobile view. So, but we need to make sure that once it gets to the smallest one, it will still keep showing 1, because at this point it's splitted this way. So how do you attend to this, it's by doing rol-cols 1. So that way, once it gets here, it remains at that point. So if you keep stretching, you can see what is happening. Based on the screen size, your content are moving on your screen size. We might need to bring back our extreme guy. To 6. Yeah, let's bring him back. So we'll have this. So we have ourselves a kind of YouTube kind of future. This is what you have, and this is what they call, this is responsiveness, because it's responding to the screen that you have, at hand. It's responding to the screen that you are looking at. Okay guys, let's spice this up a little bit. So let's have our picture coming. Let's make it fun, because right now as it is, everything is looking boring. So let's have a little bit of fun. Sure, and I have this duplicated across the columns. So let's have a column back. I think that should be enough, such that if we try to increase it as usual, we will have this spanning to what we want it to look like. But you will notice some issues. Notice that the picture, this is not coming out well. There are spaces, in between the images, and that there's a fix for that. And you can see as we go smaller, the pictures are not really stretching out to fit into the container that we want. Obviously, the solution is for us to make it 100%. But again, I don't want to style individually. There's a helper class that we have, and it's called img-fluid. So that class is supposed to make sure that we have a responsive image across board, and is to span the width to 100%. That's the purpose. So I told you, this guy got you, Bootstrap got you. They've thought about quite a lot of stuff. So what I just did was just to add our img-fluid as a class to the image. Notice what happened across board. Our images now, when you try to stretch your view, they become responsive based on what you are looking at. So even if you go like this, it becomes responsive, unlike what we have before. So you will have a problem if the image itself is so small that it can't be stretched. So that means whatever image that you are putting in a responsive view, it must be big enough to capture that section that you want it to capture. So even though we've told it that it should be fluid, which is 100%, however, it's not big enough to contain this section. So what we want to do now is to download a relatively big image such that you can see this feature come to light. So let's go to, I've downloaded something right now, so let me bring it in. So this is what I've done now. I have bg1 JPEG. So let's try to stretch this and see what happens. So you can see the difference of what we have. So your image should be something that can take, the entire weight of what you have, and it won't give you that effect that you have. And it is good that you're seeing it, so that whenever image that you're bringing in, it should actually be that, it should be able to contain the entire section that you want it to span across. So this is a good example. The thing I want to show you guys is, let's just add this other part, and I want to show you this rounded edge, rounded corner. Obviously you know how to do that in CSS, but can you do that in Bootstrap? Let's go ahead and do that. But before then, let's have our title. That looks so big. Let's do page 4, page 5. Page 5 looks good. Okay, we have our title, and of course you want to maintain some distance between here and here. You could add that to here, class, add a little bit padding on the top of the video title. So we have our class. We already know this one here. This padding adds to the top, right, bottom, left. We want to add to the top alone. So there's something we'll call PT, which is padding top. Again, we're going to exploit all this later. So this one allows us to just add the padding to the top of the elements that we're currently looking at instead of writing your class. Again, I told you, you guys are supposed to learn all the classes available. Once you know all the classes, you will not worry about styling, your writing CSS. You just write these classes. You just use your classes, and then you have your theme coming up nicely. We can go ahead and remove our background that will be highlighting since. Yeah, and do we need to remove the border? Let me leave the border there so that it's a visual representation of how we are breaking things up. So our border radius, how do you achieve your border radius here? Is by using a class title rounded. So you can do rounded. And automatically you get to see your round effects at the edge, but it might not be as quite as what you want, even though this is looking good. But if you want to specify how much rounded you want the edges to be, you could just specify rounded dash the number that you want there. So the highest being 5, and you can have this effect. You can go to 4, 3, 2, 1, and that will give you, I think this is looking close. Having rounded 4 gives you this feature. And we have more sophisticated feature whereby you can specify which one you want to round. You can see options that we have here: round top, round start, round end. And the reason why you are seeing all this feature coming up automatically for me is because I've installed Bootstrap 5 plugin, and that is available in our community. Join our community, you get to see the list of features that can help you, so you can have it installed as part of the extensions that you have. We'll send a link in the description below. You'll be able to these things will come up automatically as you're using them, because it's not everything that you can cram. As you're trying to type in a class, it will help you out to see what are the options that you have there. So this is if you want to round only bottom, bottom section to be 5, and look at the effects that we have. You can do the same to the top, or you can do end. There are quite different styling, and you could do start based on the effect that you want to bring out. It will help you to achieve that purpose. We have several effects that is there, and as you explore, you see what are the things that are available that you could do. Okay, let's move on to what we'll have next. Next, we can then let's maintain 4 and duplicate what we have on the screen to cut across all the menu. The gap looks so tightly compacted. We can increase the gap here where we have our gutter, for example. So you can increase to 3. 3 looks good. This is 4. I think 3 is just good. So this is the feature that you end up with. And as you increase it, of course, we've demoed this several times, but it just looks good. I'm showing it one more time. Your screen keep reducing based on the content you're looking at. So that's responsive without writing any CSS. We just used all the features that Bootstrap has to offer. So you can watch to the end while I style that feature as a bonus for you. Thank you for staying to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on bell notification in order to be notified when we release new videos. See you in the next one.